welcome to the Maths and Science Corner once again. And without wasting any time, today we're going to be looking at how to solve any optimization problem, right? So, um, without wasting any time, let's just get straight into it. So, we're going to look at steps to solve any optimization problem, right? So we have 6 steps that we're going to follow, right? So the first step is to define variables, right? So this would mean, let's say for example, this would mean that let's say you are dealing with parameters and areas. This would be let x equal the length, maybe something like this. I'm saying that maybe y is equal to what, and y is your width, maybe, right? And saying maybe your z is your height, right? This would be defining your variables or your variables that you have. So you look at your problem, what do you have and what variables do you need, right? So then number 2 would be to establish a function, right? Establish a function. So what do I mean by saying establish a function? So you know that, okay, you are trying to do what? You're trying to solve a problem, right? For example, let's say you are given that you are dealing with area and perimeter. To just make an example. So you know that the formula for area is what? You know that area is equal to length times breadth, right? Let's say the area of a rectangle, right? This is for a rectangle, right? Or if maybe let's say it's area of a triangle, say area of a triangle is what? Half base times perpendicular height, right? So this is what we mean by establish a function. But then, okay, so this is the function that you're going to be looking at. So which function is this first? We need to identify the type of function that we are looking at. So this function would be function to be optimized, right? So what do I mean by function to be optimized? So you're going to look at your question. When your question says maybe find the minimum area or find the maximum area or find the maximum profit, find the maximum volume, you see, the thing that they're talking about, whatever that they want you to optimize, to minimize or to minimize or maximize, right? So that function would be the function to be optimized. So if they say in this case, if our area, if you're dealing with area is equal to length times breadth, maybe, or this area, so our area is our function to be optimized, right? So I'll also explain the other type of function that we're going to be dealing with, right? So this is our function to be optimized. So step 2 is establish a function to be optimized, right? So our number 3, okay, before I go to number 3, let me just make another example with this area to be optimized. For example, if we have profit, right? Profit, maybe we're trying to maximize the profit of a company, right? You know that profit is equal to what? Revenue minus cost, right? We know this is our profit function, right? So this is what I mean by establish a function, right? A function to be optimized. So then our number 3, we're gonna say our number 3 will be formula for constraint, right? So what do I mean by formula for constraint? So this formula is a formula which, you know, when we have an optimization problem, right? We in order to, let's say for example, we try to maximize profit, right? In order to maximize profit, we must sacrifice something, right? There's something that we must sacrifice, that we have limited resources, right? So we need to do what? In order to maximize something, we need to minimize something. or sometimes in order to minimize something, we must first optimize something, right? So what this means is that, so the formula for constraint in the case of our area here, we can say that our formula for constraint, right? Our formula for constraints would be what? Our perimeter, right? So for example, they say with the perimeter, let's say they say find let's say they say you need to build a wall, right? You need to build a rectangular wall like this, right? So if you need to build a rectangular wall, you need to build the maximum. They say find the maximum area that you can build, right? And that you can cover with this wall, right? So if you try to find the maximum area that you can cover with this wall, first of all, you need to know the perimeter that you have, the minimum perimeter that you can use in order to build this wall, right? So your perimeter will be the sum of all the lengths of this wall, right? So let's say you are given what? You're given maybe, let's say you were using a fence, right? So you are given a fence that, okay, let's say you're not building a wall, but you're building a fence to cover up this area. So let's say they give you a fence which has a length of what? Let's say your fence has a length of, let's say 120 meters, right? So this is your constraint, this one. This is your constraint. So you need to find the perimeter of this thing first, of this fence, right? So that would be your constraint. So that's something that you are restricted, or you don't have enough of, or you have limited resources in order to maximize your profit, right? To maximize your area. So in this case, we know that our perimeter, let's say if we're looking at this this diagram and we're trying to find the maximum area of this rectangle, so our perimeter would be what? Would be the sum of all sides, right? That means this would be perimeter is equal to, let's say this is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D. So our perimeter would be A plus B plus C plus D, right? This is our perimeter function if we were looking at this area problem. But then now, if we were looking at, let's say, the profit function, what would be our constraint, formula for constraint? Our formula for constraint would be, we said formula of constraint is something, maybe if we're trying to maximize, our formula of constraint would be something that we do not have enough of, right? So that means, or something that we're trying to, we're saying that the profit, we're trying to maximize it, right? So our formula for constraint would be something that we're trying to minimize, right? So that means we would be trying to minimize what? Our cost, because we know obviously in order to make the most profit,